So, a lot of you are preparing for your next interview, and based on my experience and constantly being behind the hiring manager for feedback to understand what I did right and what I did wrong, and constantly learning things the hard way, here are my tips so that you can ace your next interview as an international student. So, the first thing you have to understand is your goal in the interview is to get them to like you. The simple equation is this: if they like you, they will hire you. So, how do you do this? Always have a smile, be enthusiastic, and treat it like a conversation. Make sure you don't have robotic answers. I'll give you an example. I remember for this interview I gave recently, it was so the hiring manager hadn't come, but there were still a few managers who was right in front of me, and one of them were part of the HR team. And then we just had a quick conversation about the Northern Lights that was there last week, and if they were able to see them or did they like it. And then that conversation moved to why does it do the Lights happen, or why do you want to go, what is light dispersion, what's the best chance of it happening, just to show that you're an actual human being. And as an international student, I think this is a skill that we lack. We focus more on the achievements and the qualifications that we have, and we fail to think about the human experience behind situations that we encounter, such as interviews like this. So, like for instance, when you get to an interview, talk about how you got there, mundane conversations like the weather, just to humanize the conversation and to show that you are much more than the qualifications that they can see on that paper. They know your qualifications. What they're trying to understand is who you are as a person. How does it feel to talk to you? How would you engage in a team? Especially in this modern age where everything is just likes and clicks and digital, the human interaction, we need to understand how to get people to like us, how to influence people. The second thing that you want to do is read up about the company. Now, I don't mean read about what the company does and how the business works and how the business runs. I'm assuming you know all this. But what I want you to do is go on LinkedIn, find people, find the people who work in that company, and find people in a similar position and reach out to them. Send a message saying, hey, I'm just interviewing for this current role. I would just like to have a brief chat about what the experience was like, how the company works. Do you like working there? And use this, somehow try to fit this into your answers in the actual interview. What this does is it shows that you've taken an initiative to learn about them. And this is something that most people won't do. So when you do stuff like this, it sort of sets you apart from the rest of the people who are interviewing for that position. And actually, funnily enough, speaking of this, it reminds me of an incident where I had an interview at this company, and I'd gone through their LinkedIn page, and I'd seen that they'd organized a bake sale. And a lot of companies do this. They have bake sales or charity fundraisers or something to raise awareness about a situation. Maybe it's cancer, maybe it's for feminism, or whatever it is. And I'd mentioned that I'd like the initiative for the bake sale, and you won't believe it. The person who had organized the bake sale was on the interview panel, and her face just lit up because it shows that I'd taken an appreciation for what she had done and I'd recognized the efforts that she had put. Stuff like this really goes a long way into impressing the person on the other side. Okay, now coming to the actual interview. So if you are, I'm assuming most of you are in a similar position like myself. You have maybe a year's experience, maybe less than that. So you're mainly auditioning for entry-level roles. So when the interview panel asks you a question, you can't draw too much from technical experience. So what they're gonna do is tell you about a situation, and they're gonna sort of assess how you would respond to a prospective situation that would happen in the future if you were in that company. Right, so how do you deal with this? So for most questions, what you want to do is adopt a STAR approach. So that means situation, what was your task, the action that you took, and the result. If you use this particular framework to answer questions, you're golden. And I'm telling you this because I've actually seen the paper, and you're graded on the same sort of metrics: the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So if you incorporate these into your answers, you're perfect. And the questions, I'm 100% sure that you're gonna get these type of questions. So how would you deal with stress? How would you tell me about a time where you had to deal with changing situation or changing circumstance? How do you deal with deadlines? And the best place to draw from experience is your university. So tell them about the time where you had a lot of assignments due in a particular week. How did you deal with it? Well, that was the situation. You had a lot of assignments due. What was the task? Okay, you had to submit them to achieve a certain grade. What was your action? Did you organize the assignments in terms of which ones were most time sensitive, which ones would take longer, and what was the result? What did you achieve on those assignments. So this is how you want to answer those questions, and the best way to draw from experience is actually to try and stick within the UK or stick within wherever you're applying as an international student. University experience is the best place to draw from. To sum that up, always have ready-made star approach answers for how would you deal with deadlines, how would you deal with stress, how would you deal with a situation where things were different and you had to change and adapt. For these sort of generic questions, always have an answer ready before you go to the interview. Now, I'm not saying memorize something word to word, but have a general idea of what you're going to say. The other thing is always dress to impress. We have to make an impression. When in doubt, it's always better to be overdressed than underdressed. Some generic advice would be, if you're wearing suits, stick to black or blue, white shirt, and then again a black tie or a blue tie would work wonders in this case. So always stick to the plain neutral colors. I think you could go with gray as well depending on the shades, but black and blue are always the sort of safest bet. Funnily enough, I saw someone who was going for an interview. He had a black shirt, a white tie, and a black suit, a white shirt, and a red tie. And I was like, yeah, if you're not Agent 47, don't do that. Okay, the next thing you want to do is ask questions. Now, at the end of most interviews, you could do this during the interview as well, but I'd say because you're given an allotted time at the end of the interview, do it then. Please, please, please always ask a question. Now, the easiest way to do this is, now I'm giving away one of my interview secrets over here, but I really want you guys to get this job that you want. So what you want to do is like ask a question, something like, what would be the core competencies or the essential skills that people have done over the years to succeed in this position? And what that does is it allows the interviewer to envision you in this particular role and what would be the key skills that you do. It's a bit of 48 laws of power-y and maybe a bit manipulative or whatever, but you want basically every single small thing to work in your favor. So do something like that. You could also ask questions like, what's the best thing about working in XYZ company? How have you found your experience in XYZ company? Is there room to grow and room to develop and as a professional, or something along those lines work just as well. But I really think that if you want to like drive the point home, something where the interview panel has to sort of indirectly envision you in that position, that's a quick hack to sort of get them in your favor. Another thing is, again, this goes back to my point where I said like treat the interview like an actual conversation. When you're having an actual conversation, like it doesn't flow smoothly, although we'd like it to. Like there are pauses, and instead of saying stuff like or like stuttering like that, or like, you know, going blank and you're like, you know, you can actually use buffer sentences like, okay, let me think about that, or oh, that's an interesting question, or just give me a minute, I'll have to ponder, or okay, don't use ponder, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like try to, or the best thing is to like maybe just have a glass of water while you're actually thinking and processing what to say, but try to fill that gap and treat it like an actual conversation. Like when you speak to your friend, everything doesn't, it's like, oh, okay, I forgot about that, or what was I was going to say, yeah, and then that's fine. There's no problems with that. There's going to be no negative markings for stuff like that. At the end of the day, they are interviewing a person and not a robot. Obviously, if you stutter continuously and you look lost, then that's not the way to go about things. But to have these sort of sentences or these words just to like give you a breather and fill in the space is perfect. No problems with that. Okay, lastly, to leave you with something positive, and this is not coming from me, this is coming from multiple hiring managers who have been behind their asses asking for feedback, or recruiting managers or talent headhunters. It is this: remember that if you've got the interview, you're okay on the technical front. There's no problems with your qualifications or experience. So use this as some sort of motivation or confidence to just wow them with your personality. See you on the other side.